Yep.
So I would like to, welcome everybody and bring our meeting to order on this Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. If we could please begin with a roll call.
Colleen Klimzak,
Present.
Claudia Parker, Kim Leonard, yes. Judith Basin,
Yes.
Rachel Merrickwin,
Yes.
Michael Oniller,
Present.
Denise Jones.
Yes.
Excellent. Everyone's here.
I'm so glad that everyone's better and
I
everyone
know,
is
I
here.
know.
I know, oh my gosh. Our board has had a harrowing month, so if we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. If we could all take a glance, myself included, at the agenda at our places. And first we'll do that, and then we'll approve, so. Okay, thank you, Denise. And a second, please.
I'll second.
Great, thank you, Michael. And a roll call to approve the agenda?
Denise Jones,
Yes.
Michael Oniller,
Yay.
Rachel Merrickwin,
Yes.
Kim Leonard, yes. Judy Basin,
Yes.
Claudia Parker,
Yes.
and Colleen Klimzak.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you so much. So we will lead into our staff reports from our superintendent. Thank you.
Okay, so I have quite a few updates tonight. The first of which is directly related to some COVID-19 transitions in IDPH and CDC guidelines. So as you're aware, IDPH and CDC have moved toward a transition to change our isolation and exclusion from 10 days to 5 days. As a result, once we received guidance from Illinois State Board of Education, we then adopted that additional update. What that basically is stating is that we can shorten our isolation and quarantine from 10 days down to 5 days. Close contacts are required quarantine. For unvaccinated individuals is a required quarantine for 5 days. Individuals who are 18 years of age and older who have not received their booster, this is a new update, are considered close contacts and are required to quarantine for 5 days. As a result, we'll be in the process of collecting updated information from our staff to determine where they are in terms of their booster vaccination in order to continue to keep kids safe and in school and to complete updated contact tracing. Close contacts that are no required quarantine, and I'll continue to say that this is a huge celebration. For those students who are considered fully vaccinated, are not required to quarantine as a close contact, and that includes at-home close contacts. So, we'll still continue to advocate to reach out to your medical provider, and for those school-age children who are able to be vaccinated, we'll still continue to promote that. Dr. Newman also offered a vaccination clinic recently this winter, and she will report on that tonight. Adults, again, ages 18 years of age and older who have received their primary dose of vaccine plus their booster, I'm fully boosted, I'm excited to say that, will not need to quarantine as the result of a close contact. So just some additional updates in regards to quarantines guidance. The next segment, and I think in general, this is, again, something that will just allow kids to return to school as soon as possible. A rapid antigen tests are acceptable for symptomatic students. And that's a pretty big change to our previous guidance. So PCR tests were previously the only acceptable test for a symptomatic student. And now IDPH CDC, as adopted through ISB, is now allowing families to produce a rapid antigen test for a child to return to school if they're symptomatic. So a negative test must be provided. The student has to be fever-free for 24 hours and symptoms have to be improving. So home tests, just so we're all aware, are not permissible. So we still have to have documentation to dedicate and to demonstrate that the student is able to then return to school if they're symptomatic. Test to stay guidance. This is something that we have offered to our community since day one of school. And it has provided the opportunity for those that are unvaccinated that are considered close contacts to remain in school. So this is really only applicable in the event we demonstrate close contacts at school that are fully masked at all times. That's the only time in which test to stay applies. So if deemed a close contact on school grounds while masks are properly worn, so lunch wouldn't count, I just want to specify that. Upon notification, students will then be tested days 1 and day 5. In the previous guidance, it was 4 tests. It was days 1, 3, 5, and 7. So they have reduced the number of times in which we have to test. Parents can opt into test to stay, or they can determine that it's not a best fit for them. At that time, we would provide remote instruction. I just gave you a lot of information.
So can I ask you a few
Yes.
questions?
You can.
So when we talk about students who are positive that can return after 5 days symptom-free,
So
correct?
they were positive, they were COVID positive.
What are we doing for them for lunches as far as unmasking? Because my understanding is they have to be fully masked for the full 10 days at all times. So if they're eating lunch, are we securing a separate area for kids who are?
They have to remain 6 feet apart. In our elementary settings, that's a current practice, and Central Middle School is determining the best way to isolate students if they return after the 5 days.
Okay.
So they cannot be within 6 feet of each other unmasked.
Right.
when
Well, and
they-
obviously we want them to eat a healthy lunch and
Oh, gosh,
you
yeah.
know, things
Yeah,
like that.
we're not gonna
Like our
deny
school,
them.
Serving them is
No,
not-
our
We're
school
gonna
is
deny them
doing
the
like a
opportunity.
wellness area, like for
Exactly.
just kids who are
Yeah, that's
Sure.
still recovering
right,
because they have no symptoms, but yet they are still within that time frame.
yes.
That's just up to day 10, so 6 or
Up to day
10,
10.
they're supposed to be 6 feet away.
You're exactly correct, up to day 10.
And it wasn't necessarily symptom-free, but symptoms are improving and fever-free.
Fever-free for 24 hours.
Well, and that would have been required for any child before
Yes.
this as well, so that's not
Exactly.
really news. That is a lot of information. So can you walk me through test to stay? It sounds like that also is required, like a rapid antigen would still be required for the test to stay days 1 and 5. That's obviously truncated because our quarantine is from 10 to, or isolation is from 10 to 5, so we're back down to that. So that still also has to be through a vetted outside provider.
So
et
we
cetera.
are fortunate, that's a great question. We
Okay.
are fortunate enough that we have Bionex Now, which is a rapid antigen test
Okay,
that we've been using since the beginning of the year for those parents
Got it.
who've opted into test to stay. So at this moment in time, if we've deemed them a close contact on school grounds, we would then contact the parent and say, we'll offer you a test to stay, and then we will test them on school property, and our nurses are conducting that work.
okay, I got it. So for them to come back, it needs to be a rapid antigen, not a home test, but the test to stay is actually administered at school.
Correct.
I got it, okay,
That is currently the only test that's administered at school is for test to stay policies.
that makes sense.
Michael, do you have a question?
I was just curious about how do parents opt in to test to stay?
So we've really been doing this on a need-be basis. In the event your child or a child is contacted as a close contact, then we would just call you and then state you've been deemed a close contact. As we have more kids that are fully vaccinated, this would then no longer be applicable. So if the student is fully vaccinated, they no longer have to quarantine as a close contact. So I think we'll see this practice as, you know, our vaccination rate increases, we'll see this practice diminish.
Is there certain clinics that they would need to go to get the rapid test? Because I'm just saying from personal experience, I've had the rapid and then the PCR. And the rapid, they just tell you there and they don't give you anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've had that done twice already.
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
And they just did the rapid, said, oh, you know, you're negative, and then, you know, so they didn't give you anything. I'm just concerned for families if that ever
Yeah.
happens to, if, you know, or they're gonna have to make sure. that
These
where they go
fly-by-night clinics are opening up and you just wait in line.
Mhm.
Not all of them are like this, like my daughter and I went to one where they actually, if you come back in 10 minutes, you could take a picture of their paper that they,
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
gosh.
but,
Yeah, so we
Um,
would still need proof.
So that's,
that
I'm
we
just,
would take the
we need
antigen
documentation,
test.
not
Yes,
just.
exactly.
yeah, then we went to another one where they're like, there's-
Yeah,
there's no paper, you're just negative or positive,
See?
so.
And
it's-
that's why I
Sometimes you have
thought
to
that's
turn that
huge.
into somebody, like
I
you
know,
need to
yeah.
have something to
was
prove
And that's
it.
why they
yeah.
would say, well, you'll have the PCR
Certainly.
results, you know, cause.
Yeah.
And you never get those. I've never received
They're
mine,
just taking a bit longer.
definitely.
And is all of this on the website?
So all of this was then updated in the reopening plan
Thank you.
and then is posted on the website for principals to refer parents to
Okay.
and for us to refer to parents at the district office as
For
well.
board members to read like 7 more times, oh, maybe
Yes,
just
of
me,
course.
because, I mean, we all have kids too, so
Yeah,
this is pertinent to us as board members, but also, okay, things are changing, let's reread that, and yeah, I know I'll be checking that out again, but thank you for walking us through that.
So, one question I see a lot on social media, and I see it almost daily on some of the groups on social media, is my child is testing positive, what do I do? And they, you get a strand of 50 people who tell you what to do, like for school. Is there, on our website, is there a letter to parents, what to do if your child, or like a link, what to do if your child tests positive? Because
all the information that I just referred to is in the reopening plan, it's just lengthy. So something we could do is just put like a brief FAQ. I think a lot of times what happens is it's very situational.
it is, yes, and
And so we're still recommending you contact the school and either the school nurse or the building principal will then walk you through specific steps.
I feel like if there's a link just to that part of the information, because I feel that they get overwhelmed. Because honestly, you should have seen the answers I was reading. I was like, oh, and like the simplest thing to me in my mind is to contact your principal, who will give you accurate information
Yeah.
of what to do. Do you know it?
Yeah, or the school
definitely.
nurse.
Because you're gonna call in sick just like you normally do, right?
Right.
You know your child's positive, so you know they're gonna be sick. Yeah, and I don't think they always know the nurse of their specific building or
Yeah.
the nurse, but they typically know their building principal and how to contact or reach out to them.
Great. Yeah, we can work on that for sure. Good feedback,
Thank you,
of course.
that's big.
Any other questions related to COVID-19 guidance?
No, thank you so much.
Like I said, I know I need to reread, but for now, no, thank you.
Okay, so my next update is actually really quite exciting. So one of the projects that we have started is this concept of a district implementation team. And so what I'm really trying to work towards with our staff is this concept of changing communication channels to drive school and district improvement. So the principal team and myself identified a group of teachers and representatives to really have an impact on this district implementation process. We had our very first meeting on Friday, and it was a huge success, and we received great feedback from the participants that started the process and the work. So I'm just gonna go through a couple of different highlights. So outcomes from this meeting was to describe the approach of an intentional implementation of an instructional framework at Evergreen Park School District 124. So what does that mean?
Thank you.
It means that we are collectively determining best practices in terms of teaching and learning, and we'll define them in terms of buckets. So we'll define curriculum, we'll define instruction, we'll define assessment, and the work will then really gear any curriculum work moving forward. We then set the stage for the implementation team to then determine core priorities from a survey that we administered to staff that Dr. Carlson will share out with tonight in regards to our Institute Day. So what I mean in terms of changing channels of communication. So we first asked all the teachers on January 3rd, what do you want good quality instruction to look like? And then we took that feedback from all of our staff and we brought it to the implementation team to make decisions about instruction, which is really truly best practice. Going to the next slide. We started to define this concept of high quality tier 1 instruction. And how many of you have seen a triangle like this? Raise your hand. perfect. So what we're trying to identify is what do we believe that all students should receive in a pre-K through 8th grade system at the tier 1 level. That might be an advanced classroom, that might be in a preschool classroom, that might be in a 4th grade gen ed classroom. And the quality behind this work really allows us to demonstrate what do we collectively believe is best practice and then align our curriculum processes to this.
So for the board members that aren't a part of education, can you just elaborate a little bit on tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 so that they're aware? Or I don't want to insult you. Are you guys fully aware of what the tiers
the
are?
teacher
No,
table.
I'm happy, and I will
I'll
provide the opportunity for anyone to ask any questions, but I
Okay.
think that's a great question. So what tier 1 really says is that we believe that all students should be performing, or at least 80% of our students should be performing on grade level. So if we know by the end of kindergarten, this is what we want our students to know and be able to do by the end of kindergarten, we want at least 80% of our students to be meeting grade level standards. And so we have to work towards that goal, and we have to refine our curriculum processes to then determine what does that framework for instruction look like. So essentially, we want kids to be on grade level. That's really the goal. We will really focus on coherence and clarity, and that's to bring expectations to initiatives. So essentially, I should be able to walk around the district and everyone should be able to know what we're working towards. And it should be clear to our teachers and clear to our principals, so we all have a common understanding of our goals and can really define that cohesively. And then ultimately what we do is we build improvement cycles around that concept. And then, this is my favorite part, we get to differentiate our professional development around those concepts. So not every teacher wants the same type of professional development, nor should they want the same type of professional development. I see
Right.
my teachers shaking their heads. And so we can then really tailor that work based on our implementation systems. And I wanna inform you, as we go through this, that this is all research-based. There is specific research that's aligned to implementation systems, and the research should tell us how to do this. So we're really heavily relying on research to make this come to life.
I just want to pause you. I feel like the teachers have always gravitated towards the professional development that they needed. Are you saying like school-wide?
School-wide
Okay.
that's a great question. So let's say we believe that our classrooms should have high-level questioning. And that's what we define as a part of our instructional framework. And then we go into classrooms and we're not quite seeing it, which is okay. It's non-evaluative,
Right.
but then we're gonna train teachers how to provide high-level questioning. So it's really targeted towards not only what they need, but also what we're seeing to provide them specific next steps.
Okay.
Good question. So here's just kind of a general timeline. So we've convened a group, we're putting together our broad components, and then we'll continue to share out specific information. It says extremes. What that really means is like these concepts that are focused around curriculum instruction and assessment. So what indicators are there? And then from there, we'll refine our practice. But I think one of the most important things is that we'll continue to get feedback from all teachers throughout the course of the process. And then the last portion is essentially the most fun. I think it's the most fun. So once we establish district improvement processes, then we lead that work into school improvement processes. Because not every school has to do the same thing and should do the same thing to get to the same goal. They should have their own targeted paths to get there. So that is really a high level, big picture of some of the work we've started. But it's some of my favorite work. And again, this really came as a result from teachers really saying we needed to focus on high quality tier 1 instruction. And we received great feedback from them. And I look forward to continuing with this team.
This really began with listening tours.
Yes, it 100%
And this really
did.
began with us hearing from our teachers and our paras when they presented to us as well.
Yeah.
So this is big.
It is.
This is listening to needs and making changes that need to be made, so, great. And the next meeting is in February.
In February.
How long, I would imagine, I was just answering my own question before I even asked it, I would imagine this is ongoing.
This is ongoing. And when you think about continuous improvement,
Mhm.
it's never ending,
Mhm.
right? There's always room for improvement in a school system. And essentially, once we get better at one thing, then we're on to the next. And we continue to refine our practice, and that's just truly, what we should believe in. We should believe in the process of continuous improvement and making sure that we're providing the best instruction for kids at all times. Right.
That also was meaty, thank you very much.
Yes. And pretty soon, I'm gonna just give this over to the principals. I can't wait. Okay, so our next update is related to 5 Essentials. So it's really about the time of year in which we start to really focus on this concept of a 5 Essentials survey. And although this is the time in which we ask for feedback in terms of the survey, the principal team, myself, the district administration, we have been working really hard on this concept of culture. And what culture really specifies is that culture impacts student learning. And the 5 Essentials survey is a portion that really it supports us in determining how are we doing towards culture in a school system. So the 5 Essentials surveys, just to give you a background, it is research-based school improvement system that defines, measures, and utilizes culture and climate to improve student outcomes. What 5 Essentials really states is that perception is reality. So if we're perceiving this is our culture and climate, and even if it's not quite that way, perception really still has an impact on the performance of kids. And that's really essentially what University of Chicago is stating about their survey results. So it takes into consideration 5 indicators: effective leaders, collaborative teachers, involved families, supportive environments, ambitious instruction. So research actually shows that schools that are strong in at least 3 of the 5 essentials for school improvement were 10 times more likely to show substantial gains in student learning than schools that were 3 or more of the 5 essentials. So what it's really stating is that obviously if we're scoring high on 3 of the 5 indicators, it has a large impact on student outcomes. So just a couple of logistics. Teachers take this, parents take this, students take this. And our survey window it actually opened January 11th, it closes March 11th, and we're in the process of district communication, building communication to share out in relationship to taking the survey with our community. Our students will take the survey during the school day, and then teachers will take the survey during a PLC or institute day as directed by the building principal.
I wish we could I feel like we never hear enough from the parents on the surveys. I feel like our numbers are always so low. I've always said like, we need to do something to try and boost those numbers up.
I know. We talked about raffles, didn't we?
That's what
We're
I
all
used to tell
nodding.
them. I like incentives, like the schools that have
Yeah.
or the classes
Raffle's
that
a
have.
good idea.
Right? Yeah, we're
Kids
trying
will
to
go
get
home
creative.
and kids will go home and motivate parents to do that if they think they're gonna win something,
Right,
Are the responses anonymous?
they are anonymous,
Okay,
yes.
so how do you know that they did how do you award the raffle if it's
Yeah.
anonymous, so?
We're trying to figure that out.
Well,
There's an
I
honor
think,
system.
Yeah, maybe.
Claudia?
I didn't want to interrupt. I think your participation would have a greater impact if the parents felt that their voice actually led to action.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if they're going to take the time to share how they feel about a particular interest or situation, and it doesn't change,
Right,
then why am I wasting my time expressing it if it doesn't have an impact. So what do we do with the information? Because I've been around for a little bit, and usually the essential surveys are a hard conversation
Yeah.
that we have to have with each other
Yeah.
on how we're doing.
Isn't that a
It's never,
great?
we've never felt warm and fuzzy after seeing
Sure,
the
sure.
results.
I think that's a great segue, don't you think? Because we believe in difficult conversations. We have to. It's the best way to get to results. So the principals and I have really had deep level conversations about that concept. And we've really started this year, Claudia, with our staff and bringing the results to our staff and talking about what are those essential needs. But I think moving forward, there could be a venue of bringing in parents to really have, deep level conversations about school improvement processes that could really lead to results. So each principal is going to share out just a little bit of a brief summary. And we are going to start, actually you can skip to 19. I kind of did all that the same. So we're going to start with Northeast.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yay, Lions!
Okay, so exactly that, difficult conversations, and then this just being my second year as a principal, so first year, last year when they took it.
Not to
You know.
mention COVID, all in between.
Yes, and then COVID and all that, but I really do want to stress that 5 Essentials is a great opportunity for voices to be heard. And it's something that I take, very personally as well as professionally, and I think that it has driven a lot of our goals, and hopefully I'll share what some of the actions that we have taken, and you'll see that it is coming full circle. Because as Dr. Woodland said, there's always room for improvement in everything that we do in all aspects of our life. We need to reflect, and then we need to set goals, hold one another accountable, and then work together towards those goals. And that's really what collaboration is. So our highlights, you can go back, sorry. Our highlights, one of the one that was kind of an aha for me looking at the data is that we have really high teacher-to-teacher trust, which we think is super important when you have established goals and you're working towards those goals, that teachers trust one another. So they're supportive and respectful of one another, not only personally but professionally. They trust each other in the school. It's okay to discuss feelings, worries, and frustrations with other teachers. So kind of we have this safe space. I see teachers supporting one another, and just kind of also some teachers taking the lead in terms of school improvement, and that's respected as well. And then I think ultimately teachers just feel respected by one another in our building. So that's great. Another aha and highlight was a supportive environment. So the peer support for academic work, and what that means is that students feel that they're demonstrating behaviors that lead to academic achievement. They do feel important that they pay attention in class, and they think that they do a good job at that. They also think that homework is important, and they really do overall try hard to get good grades. So, and I love the different perspectives. We have different stakeholders here, our students, our teachers, and our parents. And I do want to thank everyone, who took the time to fill out the survey, because it really is honestly important. And then the third highlight was the ambitious instruction. So the quality of student discussion, which again, this is coming from the students, that they feel that they do a good job of participating in class discussions that build their critical thinking skills, and they like to build on each other's ideas and stories. So again, we had some great highlights in those 3 areas. We improved dramatically. Now, we also have areas of growth. So we're looking at a supportive environment. So they called it academic personalism. So one of the things that stuck out to me is even if one student answered this way, that they noticed that if I am having trouble learning. And that really struck me, because even if a couple of them answered, to me that was interesting. So we did start, and we'll talk about our action plan, but I bring this to the staff and we talk about what can we do? Well, one teacher then says, well, this is what I do. I use a level of understanding, and when I'm teaching, I have them hold up a number, like 4, 3, 2, 1. And there's criteria set for each of those levels of understanding. And then so students right then and there, very quietly to themselves, can let their teacher know. And someone said oh, that's a great idea. Can I steal that? So then it becomes this domino effect of great collaboration and teacher strategies being utilized. So we're gonna make it a point that we're going to have those levels of understanding throughout our whole entire school. And so then everyone feels like their voice is heard, and if they're having trouble, that they feel validated. So I thought that was kind of like something that stuck out. And then the next one was ambitious instruction. So we talked about that, you know, students want to be challenged. They want high expectations set for them. And so one of the things that came up was even our math instruction and both of our English instruction. So we have these power half hours that we implemented where they focus on a different, you know, like it's like Math Monday and then Thankful Thursday. So it's embeds reading, math, it also, some writing, so they want more rigor, you know, they want more consistency and they want more opportunity to have this ambitious instruction. So, so what do we do as principals? Next slide, please, thank you. So we bring it to our building leadership team first, and this is just a snapshot of kind of like the highs and the lows. And we look at the results and then we set goals and then we present that to our staff. Okay, so we utilize then our PLC time that we have on Wednesdays to look at the 5 essentials and break off in grade level teams and then come back and share our ideas, and that's when this collaboration starts. So what are some of the things that we did? As I mentioned, that power half hour, so this led to you know, that little strategy that we're trying to implement. In my perfect school world, it would happen at the same time every day. Like everyone, you know, I would make the announcement and everyone would stop and drop. But, you know, we all know because of schedules, we can't do that. But we, you know, but we try. So I'm loose about when it happens, but we're trying to get that half hour in every day. The levels of understanding, as I talked to you about, just making kids feel a little bit more comfortable about, you know, and telling their teacher and letting that teacher know if they're not understanding something, you know, and then the teacher knows that, you know, a little bit quicker and then can facilitate and help guide. Marvelous, so we have Marvelous Math Medalists and Reading Rock Stars, so that's all part of our visible learning too. I love alliterations, by the way. So again, highlighting that rigorous, ambitious instruction and having kids set goals and take ownership for their learning. You know, and then that also then extends to home and we send that communication to home and now everyone's involved and it's a competition and, you know, they talk about it, oh, look who's a reading rock star today. So I just think just providing them with that opportunity. And then we are attending a math intervention PD on our own, and this is, again, what Dr. Woodland talks about in terms of, you know, building oriented. You know, they want some more math rigor, we want some more strategies and resources, so we're gonna meet as a team, go to this in PD, and then present back to our staff and share out, so. Okay, so
And
that's,
then how often are so I love everything that you just said, it's great. How often after the essential surveys do you share out incrementally the successes with the stakeholders that filled it out?
so usually, well, this is my second year, so I think what has happened in the past, and anyone can fill, I mean, as soon as we get the results, we share it out with the stakeholders. And as part of our like reopening plan every school year, I know that I included these goals to my families. Like these are kind of our goals that we're heading towards. Like, and then we have the opportunity tonight to present, and hopefully people are listening as well.
Sure.
And then we have, I know this information was also presented and started to be presented in the summer as well.
In the summer, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I would just suggest, because communication was my thing.
Yeah.
A small little tiny thing, whenever you have a success in an area of growth,
Mm-hmm.
maybe just put it out there to your parents. You told us in the essential survey that we needed to improve in blah, blah, blah. As a result,
This is what we did, yeah.
yeah, just a tiny little thing, and then that sticks in their head. Oh, so that survey I filled out is making a difference. I
And I
gotta
think-
follow up.
Yeah, we talked about being more mindful in the wording and the way we communicate
Yeah.
and let them know that this is coming from the 5 essentials and
Exactly,
be specific, like, you know, as a result of
yes,
X, Y, Z happened, so.
yeah, okay.
And
Thank you.
ask your student, right?
Yeah.
Always the, hey, you know, check in with your kids, starting those conversations with them.
People feel
as they-
empowered when they feel heard.
Right, I agree with you.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for your time, I
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
you're doing
Thank
good
you, Ms.
things,
Barrett.
it's exciting.
Okay, next we're on to Northwest, and Claudio is here to present for us today. He's in place of Matt Bannock. Matt Bannock had an event with his daughter.
Very important.
It was
Very
very
good
And we are glad to
And
hear
it's
from
a
you,
great
so.
opportunity for Claudio, he's gonna do
Yes, it
fabulous.
Thank you for having me. At Northwest, we're proud of the great work the staff has done, and it's reflected in us receiving the well-organized designation on the 5 Essential Survey, and that's something that we're very proud of. Our highlights were all in the most implementation performance category, and they include ambitious instruction in English and math, supportive environment in peer support for academic work, involved families in parent influence on decision-making, and effective leaders in instructional leadership. The areas in which we still need to grow were identified in the average performance category, and they include effective leadership, teacher influence, and involved families, teacher-parent trust. When we initially received the results, we decided to meet with the building leadership team, and as a leadership team, we analyzed the results and determined the areas in which we still needed to grow. We took these areas and the initial results and presented them to the entire staff and used that as an opportunity for the staff to provide us with more detailed feedback. We then considered the feedback, we considered our areas, and then we determined the priority areas, which we're gonna present in the next slide, in order to improve the areas of teacher influence and teacher-parent trust. For teacher influence, we more explicitly asked staff about needs for their classroom and purchased requested materials. We formed professional development groups and had them work together to identify opportunities to support their growth. And we co-created expectations for students and staff as we started the school year. We also examined the initiatives to get a better sense where teachers were coming from and tried to find ways to focus on the important areas of instruction. Teachers also wanted more two-way communication with families, so we created a survey for families to give teachers feedback and additional information about their students. We feel that last year we did really well in terms of receiving the well-organized designation, and we're excited to take the survey again this year and continue focusing on the areas where we can improve outcomes for our students.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
I love the Peer Buddy program. It's really fantastic, and I see kids throughout the community, like over the summer, recognizing each other and they're all excited that like, oh, that used to be my peer buddy. I think that's like one of the best programs that we have.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudio.
Thank you.
Southeast. So as we know, Haley is a new principal this year, so
Good
she's
evening.
jumping right in.
So like Carrie said, I think the 5 Essentials is a great place to start as a new principal. And I think just acknowledging that there will be just a lot of changes with the new principal. So when we look at the 5 Essentials, I think we look at it through that lens of there's already naturally been changes this year. So when we look at our highlight, being a supportive environment was our top area. So students really supporting each other with academic work, that student-teacher trust in the classroom, and then teachers that academic personalism, so the teachers really knowing students' academic goals and pushing students to achieve. The areas of growth were effective leaders, collaborative teachers, and involved families. And so when I went through this with our leadership team on the next slide, when we looked at, our teachers feel good about collaboration, but one of the points is that last year with COVID, there just were not opportunities for collaboration. So that's why we kind of scored lower on the survey last year with collaboration. Also with involved families, kind of that same point got brought up, is that we weren't able to do some of those activities that we've always done in the past. And so
Because
when we filled out.
Southeast has a ton of involved families.
Yeah, and so I do feel like it's
Surprised
important
by
just to
that.
acknowledge that, is
Okay.
that we just weren't able to do a lot of those activities that we've
Yeah.
done in the past.
Sure.
So when we looked at kind of our next steps in terms of what we're going to do, just continuing to build effective leadership. So with new leadership in the building, that instructional leadership piece, so modeling good instructional practices and PLCs, also that focus on the Danielson framework that all of the schools have been doing, so really building what does effective instruction look like in the classroom. And then continuing to build teacher, principal trust. So again, as a new principal, like continuing to build those relationships with teachers is really important. And along with that is that program coherence, so aligning our school goals and plans so that we have specific focus areas that we want to concentrate on. With the collaborative teachers, again, just naturally this year, we have more time for collaboration. Like we have those common plan times, so teachers feel better about collaboration this year than last year because we are able to schedule-wise have that time in the day. And then quality professional development experiences. So again, that was an area that we scored low on last year, so really concentrating in our PLCs of like what do our teachers need and really having focused professional learning experiences. So one of those areas, actually the last bullet point, is supporting students in the pandemic. So not only academically, but socially and emotionally, what do our students need right now to be successful? And one of the things that we've done is really focus on like trauma-informed practices in our classroom. And so we had a great PLC a few weeks ago that really gave specific strategies to use to kind of take care of that social emotional health. Any questions?
That last one is a big
Yeah.
one. I think
Yeah.
everywhere is
thing.
struggling with
Yeah.
trauma-informed training in our PLCs, like we
Yep.
can't get it. I think teachers are craving, help in that area, so yeah.
I have a great,
Yeah.
we got a great trainer that came in and
Yeah,
really just gave
Katie.
specific examples. I think that teachers all walked away with like, I can do this today. These are some
Practical
specific
stuff.
strategies that I
Wow.
can try.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Bulldogs, let's
All right,
see.
Jen.
So I think one of the, hear a lot of similar strengths as some of the other schools because it is such a strong community. I think one of the really cool things that's interesting about the 5Es is to take a really good look at some of the questions because you really get some insight into the ways that people feel about super specific things. So one of our highlights, as an example, was some of the responses from our students and peer support for academic work. And I was interested in looking at some of those questions to figure out what they meant. And one of the really cool things about the student responses is not only it's about how they feel, but how they feel their peers feel, right? So for questions about whether or not it's important to try hard in school or whether or not it's important to be in school, they not only feel it's important for themselves, but they feel that their peers feel that it's important. And I think that just speaks to the culture that of a school, that not only do the kids feel it's important, but they feel that they're all on the same train, moving the same direction. And so I think that's one of the things that the 5Es does a nice job of is really opening those windows into the way that different stakeholders are feeling. Another highlight for Southwest was involve families. Teachers really feel that the parents are partners. And that's evidenced by the amount of our parents that come into the building to participate in events, or one of the specific questions is about parent-teacher conferences. And so over 90, I think that was 95% of teachers felt that their parents attended. And then not only that, but that parents were taking their suggestions on how to help their children. And I thought that was a really cool highlight for Southwest, is that parents come, are interested, and then take what the teachers are suggesting to best support and help their students and their children grow. And then the last thing, another highlight at Southwest was just that supportive environment that exists. Teachers reported incredibly high levels of trust and respect for each other. There's an awesome question about being new to the staff and whether or not you feel welcomed. And that's something that even historically has just sat at 99 at Southwest. And so that's just a really cool thing to see and know that even as staff changes, that welcoming culture still exists and people feel like it's a great place to be.
Yeah, like they retire after 50 years.
A few in my tenure here just amazing numbers of 35 years in the district. I mean, I think in my 5 years, we've had 4 to 5 teachers with over 30 plus years at Southwest retire. And even as the staff changes, those characteristics and that culture still continues to exist. And so that's something that, Southwest should be really proud of, and the teachers who, that applies to should be proud of as well.
Yes.
Areas of growth, teacher influence was something that, have been kind of historically low in that decision-making process, and I think that a lot of the work, and I'll speak to this in some of our actionable steps, but a lot of the work that we're already doing this year, teachers feel like their influence is growing. And I thought it was a really good conversation, just to get some insight, again, into those specific questions and the reasons why people felt that the responses maybe looked the way that they did. Professional development, as well, was an area or an opportunity for growth for us. Choice, I think, is another big thing, and having the choice and having the belief that what we're doing or what we're spending our time on is having an impact in our classroom. And so being hyper aware of that when we're making those decisions is something that's incredibly important for us to continue to have at the forefront of our mind. And I think Haley spoke to this about collaboration. We just didn't have an opportunity to do a ton of collaboration last year. We asked teachers to kind of stay, in their rooms or, away from big groups. And so while we have a lot of dedicated common plan time in our building, we might not have used it specifically for a ton of collaboration due to the circumstances last year. So when we sat down to have the discussion as an administration and a building leadership team, we worked together to interpret and analyze the results. And I found this to be a really awesome exercise because one of the things that we did was just make sure that we were on the same page around. So for example, if there was something that I said, well, that was an interesting response total to me. I'm surprised that we were that low for X, Y, and Z reason. And maybe the staff said, well, actually, this is how we interpreted the question. And I think that goes a lot to, what Claudia spoke to earlier about communication and being able to be specific about, this is what we do, this is why we do it. And then when we do that, it hopefully manifests itself in different, results. There were some aha moments of like, oh, that's what that meant? I interpreted it like this. Well, then that's on, us as a building administrative team, as a district administrative team, and as a teacher leadership team to communicate that, those moments to staff. And then the second thing that we did was for those key items was to identify actionable steps. I think that, again, to the communication piece is, okay, so what are we actually doing? What are some tangible steps that we can take as a building, as a district, as a staff, that are evidence of success? And then the last piece is controlling the narrative. I think that we've done, or sharing our story. I think that we've done a great job as a district with that over the last couple of years in the way that we've organized our websites and our communication and the Twitter campaigns and things like that, but there's always ways we can communicate better.
Are we still doing that? Because that was a really great way for teachers to be able to see best practices and successes that were happening in classrooms district-wide. And it's like Northeast teacher could steal I love what they're doing at Southeast. Oh, I love what they're doing at Southwest. Like, is that still happening at all?
I am a Twitter pro, right, Scott?
You are? I'll let you answer this one.
Yeah, I think that I firmly believe in social media. It's just kind of the land that I stand in, and that I can even tell you I presented out on Twitter on October Institute, and it's because I think it's a great way for teachers to just build their professional learning network, and not just in Evergreen Park, but outside of Evergreen Park. Education's a really connected field, and you learn so many great things from educators outside of the district that you can bring into the district as well. I think, again, we can always improve, and
My question is, are the teachers within our school district still sharing
Oh,
with
yeah.
each other
Yeah.
on our platform?
#BeEvergreen. Yep. Oh, yeah. They're doing a great job with it.
Good.
And so, just planning and implementation based off those discussions. One of the things that when Carrie talked about, or you asked Carrie about, what are we doing? How have we started? What are the actionable steps? That teacher influence one in my mind, I thought was something that I could take action on right away. And so what we did early on in the school year was, all the time, teachers, and rightfully so, are asking for things that will help their students be successful. And I think a lot of times in education, budgets can be vague. And one of the things we did at the beginning of the year was to sit down and say, what are the things that we need? What is the bare minimum? Every classroom has to have X, Y, and Z in order for students to be successful. And we came up with that list, and I also shared, okay, this is the amount of money that I have this year, and so how can we create a sustainable system to replace and update worn out items, as they deteriorate over time, whether it's furniture or consumables, whatever the case may be. And I think that's like an example of the teachers got to say, this is what I need to be successful, and I get to say, now you have it. And so, or we're getting it, you know what I mean, whatever the case may be. And so I thought that was like an example of, okay, I feel like I have some ownership over how we're spending some of that discretionary spending, which is a 5Es question. The second thing is finding a balance between teacher-directed, district-led and building-led initiatives. As time is our most precious resource as educators, we just want to be really intentional about how we're spending our time, while also trusting the teachers who work with the kids every day in that direct contact, that they know what needs to be done. So finding a balance between all of those things is something that we're doing as a building as well. That collaboration time, so that we feel it's productive, is another thing that we're talking about as a building. We've worked hard with our master schedule to provide teachers the opportunity to have their plan time with their grade level partners. And so thinking about how we're utilizing that time so that we feel we walk out of those moments with something that we can take back into our classrooms, or that we've made a difference in our personal practice. And sometimes the flip side of that, though, is getting into other teachers, getting into grade level peers' room. So if you all have plan at the same time, there's not built-in opportunities to see another third grade teacher teaching, unless you move to build a different building or something like that. So getting creative on how we can honor that common plan time, but also get into other classrooms so that we can see the amazing teachers do the amazing things that they do. So
I'll just add too, parents love helping out. So when I think Lisa Banos Cruz from Central, she put a post out on social media saying, if there's anybody that's got an extra music stand, you could donate it in the lobby, in the front box. I'm not kidding you. We were all up in our closets where is that dang music stand? You've been collecting that. She can absolutely have it. I was giving it too much. I'll take this to Ms. Banos Cruz. But she had a laundry list of responses. So I'm sure she got it. So if there's ever community, are you listening? Don't be afraid to put it out on social media, on the website. Say, hey, those practical things that we have, we're more than happy to help.
sure. I often parrot that you can't get what you don't ask for. So.
And to your point, if we can't be in the buildings right now, a lot of us, maybe families don't feel comfortable, what a great way to be involved.
You send it with your kid to school. Not a big deal.
So that, it does give us, it gives
Yeah,
the
the little
parents
stuff,
and
we're happy to help.
the students that investment too, so.
Any questions?
Great job, Scott.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Right.
Hey.
Mr. Swilly.
Hello, everyone. So, much of the things that we would discuss, we've had some conversations about, so it wouldn't be too new to you. Highlights and areas of growth, and ambitious instruction was one that was a highlight coming from our students, reporting that the math instruction was rigorous and that they had great peer support when they were doing academic work. So I love to see that coming from our last year students in their report. Our areas of growth were teacher, principal, trust, and teacher influence, as well as instructional leadership. And so for me, and I've mentioned before, for me, one of the most important things was to make sure that my people are okay. The people that are doing the work, that are hands-on daily with our students. We as a administrative staff have been working very hard to forge those relationships with our teachers and ensure that we are empowering them to have the things that they need and to be able to step forward and do the things that's necessary in the classrooms. So as far as conversations with staff, many of these conversations happened rather organically before we were even able to present anything to one, but we had consistent discipline from administration, was conversations, consistent discipline within the classroom was our conversations. Systemic change that impacts academic performance were those questions, as well as teacher value, the teacher input when making decisions. So again, that especially that last bullet point, it was exceptionally important that we start to create processes where our teachers are able to speak to us and talk about the changes that we're making, why we're making it, what is good for them and for the kids. That process happens even in our building leadership meetings, to the point where we're open with anyone on our staff can come to a building leadership team. So they can come to those meetings and be part of that and hear what everyone else is hearing and be an integral part of those changes. So, and then, and I know this is kind of small because I put a lot of stuff towards the bottom. But essentially, and I'll go straight to that, essentially when it talks about implementation plans, essentially what we are looking at, in December, we had conversations with our staff about PD coming up for next year. And the plan was that we were going to come back from the break and we were going to dive into the PD that's listed there. We're going to talk about classroom management. We're going to talk about examining instructional behaviors, that we, as educators, vertical alignment, we're going to really hit all those things, and we had a map out of how that was going to work. Over the break, it became pretty clear that we were coming back to COVID. So we stalled a little bit, because what I did not want to do, like I said before, we want to take care of our people. We did not want to come back and just kind of dump on our teachers. So we are about to make a revisit to that plan that was established in December, to start talking about
It's a
classroom management.
sizable plan.
It's ambitious.
It's very ambitious,
Yes.
and you should know that each, and this is what I said to the staff when we put it up, it gave meetings as if each one was a meeting, but it's really, really clear that we won't just have a singular meeting on each one of those. This is an ongoing,
Sure.
long list, but these are things that I think as we address those concerns, they go in order of how it is that we can manage what's necessary in our building. So
Right.
it is sizable, but it is not something that is supposed to be done tomorrow, you know.
What do you mean by vertical alignment?
Vertical alignment essentially meaning that the simplest way to explain it is, you know, I was a social studies teacher, and I like to teach I taught African American history, right? And then there are, and some teachers in particular, they really enjoy the Egypt unit. And so I'm a 5th grade teacher, I teach the Egypt unit, and because I'm a 6th grade teacher and I teach social studies, I love Egypt too. So now we're learning about Egypt in 6th grade. And it just so happens that the 7th grade teacher also loves it. So now I'm doing Egypt for 3 years in a row type thing. So the idea of vertical alignment means that we are progressing along the standard, but we are not going to be hitting all of the same concepts that we're growing and we're scaffolding in terms of vertical alignment. So we're aligning ourselves to go up with our curriculum and our standards. And then priority standards, that essentially means we have a lot of learning standards that we have to have. And what we want to do is take the time, and Dr. Woodland has led this work, want to take the time to really focus on the most enduring, the most relevant standards that will impact learning right now as well as in the near future and further beyond. So we have to look at those standards. Not that none of them, the others are not important, but there are some that are more important. And so we have to think about which one of those we're going to kind of focus on. Because we can't do all of what's there. If that makes sense. There's far more than what we have time for. That is a pretty well known fact there. So. Okay.
Thank you.
So a common theme is
Yeah,
teacher
I was gonna
influence.
just quiz the board. What's the
I wrote
common
it
theme?
down, Claudia, I wrote it down.
What is it?
So to state it plainly, then our teachers feel like they don't have any authority to make change.
Thank you, Mr. Swoley.
Thank you, Mr. Shelley. He's like, I'm gonna back out of this.
Slow back.
Yes, and I would say say that that was a common theme. I would say that Scott kind of really spoke to it too, that they're seeing a significant shift this year, and it's this change in collaboration and a change in intentional practices to include teacher voice in a decision-making process. So yes, I agree, there is a common theme. Teachers need an influence.
What we opened with is fixing that.
Oh yeah, and I'm fixing it.
Okay.
Right guys? Yeah, look at their they're shaking their heads.
I had a question, and like I said, I did write that down, wrote down teacher influence, that was
Yes.
highlighted in several of the schools.
Yep.
And also the effective leadership that's together.
Yes,
So
It's 100%
explain to me,
together.
because, I thought the teacher and teacher contact was good, and everyone's getting along and sharing their plans and encouraging one another. Like, help me understand why was that an area of concern, area of growth?
I think when I really reflect on it, it's a constant communication channel. And when when I'm referring to like this district implementation team, I really truly am, from like the district level down, like building level up, trying to change communication channels so that teachers really truly feel valued, and that not only am I going to listen to you, I'm gonna act on what you've said. And so like when I think about the listening tours specifically, and they want to focus on high quality tier 1 instruction, I'm not just gonna say we're gonna do that, you're gonna be included every single step of the way. And so it's this concept of changing district implementation that results in all teachers having feedback to then bring back to the building level.
So
Just
the
a different-
teachers together
Yeah.
are fine, it's the teachers and administration is the problem.
And I think too, when I really reflect on that, teachers, it's clear here, they trust each other, right?
They do.
So if we could all just wiggle our way in, right? Right? What a concept. Let's just get in there, work with them, work alongside them to really value their opinions and really value their work, and bring it to like a district system. Like, this is what you said is going to be best for our kids. So let's really focus on that collectively together.
The problem, what we're having with teacher collaboration is that time element. So how do they get more time to collaborate with one another, being that they do work so well together?
I think it's intentionality. You have to be intentional
Okay.
about using time, and specifically so, and really mapping out. And we started some of this work at our retreat this summer. We can still do better at it, but like having like a year-long professional development calendar. What does it look like for building-based PLCs, district-based PLCs? We've got 5 institute days. Like, when you really map out that chain of communication and really allow for committee work to take place. But you have to be intentional about, here's our specific goals that we're working towards, and here's how we're gonna get to them.
And again, we're also this is also last year's answers, right? So last year we had interim superintendents, so it's not that we didn't have leadership or strong leadership, we had temporary leadership. And there
That's a great
is a
point.
huge difference between temporary leadership that was they did a phenomenal job together. They
Oh,
really
yeah.
worked well, and then when Jenna got hired, obviously, and she was brought into the fold, it just made it stronger, but we at the end of the day, they were interims, right? They were there, they did a different job than a typical superintendent. Their tasks were not the same as what Dr. Woodland's would be, right? So I think that also contributed, and we're still in a pandemic, and chasing the rules on a daily basis for our staff is daunting, it's exhausting. They are the police of masks, they are, I mean,
Yeah,
I can't, all day, how many more times can you do that, right? So, I think last year was a huge undertaking for all of our staff, and they did a phenomenal
They did.
job of what they had, and our leadership. But I think it looked different also
sure,
because of the top leadership, if that makes sense.
absolutely.
So
Good
we
question.
can definitely look forward to
Yep.
the results as we get them.
Yeah. We're excited.
Opened January
It,
11th, you
it did
said.
open January 11th, but we'll be sending out information in the very, very near future on how parents submit and how students will submit during the school day, and then teachers as well.
Find out if the changes that we are making, because we did listen,
Yeah.
are indeed making changes.
Exactly.
Thank you to our principals.
Oh my gosh, they did
Thank
fabulous.
you so much, and assistant principals, thank you. That was great,
They
and
did so fabulous. We've been talking about this for a long time. We all committed to January. They were gonna share out, and they did a great job. So thank you so much. Okay. Okay, registration updates. This is so exciting. I'm gonna quiz you guys. Ready?
It is, yes.
Ready? How long have you lived in Evergreen Park?
Oh, close to 45 plus years.
45 years. Rachel, how long have you lived in Evergreen Park?
9.
Okay,
15,
15,
closing in on 29.
29,
22.
4.
4. Perfect. How many?
8 years.
Awesome. So here is my point. So for those parents who have lived in Evergreen Park for an extended period of time, here's what I've learned. People who come to Evergreen Park, you don't leave Evergreen Park. You come here, you want to stay here. And I love it. I love everything about that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use an updated technology system to weed out the people who live in Evergreen Park. And we're going to use this company to really support us and then narrowing that filter. So for those individual parents who live in Evergreen Park, the computer-based system is going to determine that you live here. And guess what? I don't want any of your documentation. You wanna know why? Because you lived here for 45 years.
I hate doing that.
You know,
Every year.
I'm sure you do. I am sure you do. And
Like,
here's
where's
the
this?
benefit. Here's the benefit behind this. It really clears out what I'll say, like the noise for those that don't live here, and really allows our registration office to really focus in on the individual people who we need to check residency with. So this fall, I personally witnessed Elizabeth Lopez register every single family in the district. One person with a little bit of help. And I cannot tell you, I felt bad for her.
It's daunting.
I really, truly felt bad for her, and I said to myself, we can fix this. And I'm gonna work with her to fix this process to make it much more approachable for our families who live in Evergreen Park, to help her really tailor the specific needs to the individual families who we really need to focus on and provide that documentation to ensure that they do live here. So my recommendation is ClearBatch, and I can tell you I do have personal history with it. I've used it in my past district. It's a company that really runs information to then determine who lives within district boundaries. It statistically has proven residency without additional documentation of between 87 to 92% of families. I'm looking at Carrie Berry. She's lived here forever too, right? And then some.
There's so many berries here.
Yeah,
So many berries.
exactly.
Better check them all.
I've known them for 20 years. Like, no, trust me, yeah, I know where it's good. They're good.
All new families to the district, including kindergarten, will still be required to prove all requested documents, as
Right.
that's a typical practice, and we want to ensure when people move here that they still provide residency. So there will not be any changes to that. And family with leases that expire prior to the start of the new school year will still have to provide specific documentation. I will state that Elizabeth Lopez is really excited about this change.
Oh my gosh.
We are gonna pilot it with our kindergarten, so we can still like try the system behind the scenes to ensure it works before we have like big updates in the fall. So are there any specific questions? I can tell you, it's a very, in my opinion, nominal fee. It's $700 a month. When I think in terms of like,
That's
yeah, I
not
know,
bad.
it's very nominal.
Not the money that they were talking last summer when we heard.
No, but I mean,
Remember those few were like, I mean,
yes, oh yeah.
$30,000 and $40,000.
Yeah. No, it's a very nominal fee.
Man hours alone, I
And
mean,
man hours alone.
and didn't you just say you hate having to do that every year? And, you know, you've got a couple more years to do that with your people, so, that really makes so much more sense.
It does, and
Um,
it's 2022, right? So
right.
we're gonna bring it into the new times, we're gonna work
It's
with.
not invasive, it's information that
It's
exists,
information.
that's common, that's
Is
public
it
record.
monthly, even though we're not registering monthly?
It is monthly because we could still run new residency. So it will still be like a backup to ensure that if like a new person does come in, that we could still use the technology system to then funnel that person.
Kindergarten is in May.
So you'll notice that we had specific timelines in the updated registration. That was in your board packet. Kindergarten's first starts in March, if I remember correctly. And then we'll transition into, obviously we take new students at all time, and then we'll transition into opening up for all families this spring.
Dr. Woodland, yeah.
Yeah. It's just so exciting, right?
Where is the information or the data about our families being stored? Do we house that? Do we own that still? Does that go to Cleared?
It goes to Clear, but it's a completely confidential company.
Okay, and is there, we feel confident in their processes in regards to keeping and maintaining confidentiality?
Yes.
Is it just like residency stuff, or is it like their vaccination records as well? Because I
It
know
is
we've got the whole schedule that we
Solely
require.
residency,
Okay.
solely residency.
Okay, cool.
Great
Because if
question.
that has anything to do with iClear, a system we use at our job, it's phenomenal.
I don't know iClear. I'll have to ask.
So when I saw Clear, I'm like, wow. If it has any
maintain the immunization.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I thought it sounded familiar.
iClear? Okay, maybe I'm getting it wrong because it has to do with a whole bunch of, a lot of personal information
Sure,
stuff. But I had one other question.
of course.
The lease section, families with the leases that expire prior to the start of the new school year.
Yeah.
They will have to, so will they have to, explain that to me, please.
So essentially, because it's different than owning a home, like a lease is temporary, we want to ensure that the lease was renewed. And that's typical in a registration, like residency process, to ensure that the lease wasn't cut off at a certain time and or that they still do live within the district's boundaries. So it's just an added layer to ensure that that family still lives in Evergreen Park. So we will still be requiring that.
So the sale of a home or the purchase of a home are both public record. So it's, I mean, not Googleable, I'm sure that they're not, it's clear batchable, but a lease wouldn't be, is my
Yeah.
guess. So,
Yeah.
you know, you can track public record. If I bought my house, you know, they know I bought my house in 1994, like, that's just public record. And if I sold it, they'd know that too, but a lease would be much more personal.
I don't know, I'm just
person to
thinking
person.
differently. I was kind of thinking that maybe by the person, the family renting, that maybe they would have to renew every year. I don't know why I'm thinking that,
Yeah.
prior to the new school year.
Leases are really tricky. Some of them are 3 months, some of them are 6 months, some of them are 12 months. So I think in terms of, you know, ensuring that they are truly a resident, it's within the district's best interest to continue. And that's a current
Yeah.
practice, I can tell you that's a current practice. So that practice just wouldn't be changing.
And that it's a rentable, housing, like it goes also through the building department in Evergreen Park. It has to be, any landlords have to show proof that their, houses or their rental buildings are occupancy. Yeah, so there's a lot of layers of the leasing that
Yeah.
goes into,
It's tricky.
to making sure that because we also wanna make sure that our families are living in, you know, spaces that are occupiable, you know, or habitable.
Safe spaces.
Right, safe spaces, right.
Habitable, yes, for sure. And that I can't even say it, that the student is listed on the lease.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's
Very true.
I didn't know that.
Oh, I'm confused now.
Mm-hmm.
Is Clear a service that we would be subscribing to that we have a query, does Colleen Klimzak live in Evergreen Park, and it's like, yes? Or is it a storage system where we do our registration process per normal, but then we maintain the records and we don't require additional
We will,
documentation?
we will run clear, like this original batch, once families initially enroll. So once we have families initially enroll in the spring, Elizabeth Lopez will run an initial batch over the summer to determine, yes, Colleen Klimzak does live here in Evergreen Park. We can then proceed with running additional batches and or search by individual.
It sounds like all the information gets uploaded into this program. The
Bingo, from
program
Power
runs
School.
the.
Explores it.
Yep.
And updates it as applicable, based on
Yes.
whether you sold your home or.
Yes,
Okay, through like public record
Right.
searches.
Correct.
The rentals are the thing that
Yes.
continues on the same thing that we're doing now.
exactly.
The rentals and like people that live with family, like, you know,
Oh,
if
right.
I ever choose to move home with my mom, she tells me I can't, but if I wanted to and bring all my
Mom says you
children.
gotta go.
Yes, my mom tells me all the time, that's why I don't get a key. Cause she just knows one day I'll come back to haunt her. You know, if I lived with her though, we'd have to prove that, and that's nothing on paper, right? I mean, that's not, there's a
Right.
different process to go through.
Right.
I'm sure she's not watching.
I was gonna ask, she's listening, so. she's
My
locking the
sister's
door.
going, no, I'm moving in.
She's locking the door right now, Kim.
You'll also notice, I don't know if you saw in your board packet, there was a cover letter with communication that we'll send out to families just so they have updated. It's really a draft letter that Clear Batch provides, so it's very, you know, systematic and common in nature. Clear Batch also did, if you're interested in seeing it, provide me like an article of like when a couple other communities transitioned and their communities were obviously, they were very pleased with the transition as well.
If this will help,
Such as Rachel will be
if this
really-
helps make her job more streamlined, that's great. Because we
Yeah.
want the people in Evergreen Park to have an ease of residency and registration.
Yeah.
And they are entitled to our education. It's just that, you know, we struggle with that people sometimes want to come here that shouldn't, so that do not have that
No lines.
residency.
No
So
lines in August, that's what we
No.
wanna hear,
That would be
right?
great.
No.
Yes.
I can't,
I'm
I'm
gonna get there
excited.
right when it opens.
Right, always, always, we always do, yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much. If you have any questions that come up, just let me know.
That seems like a really great tool, so,
Yeah, I'm excited.
I know, that's huge. Glad
Sure,
you
the
do.
last year I'll need it, cause I got major the next year.
You can be happy for everybody else.
Exactly.
Okay, Dr. Carlson.
Hello.
Hello.
So I'm gonna share with you a little bit about our January 3rd Institute Day. We came back with much flexibility from our staff, which we appreciated a lot. We had planned for this big in-person Institute Day, and through conversations, many with Dr. Woodland, it was decided to go virtual. So very much appreciated how flexible all of the staff was when we made that last minute change. Also, coming back from break, you kind of like a day to kind of ease in, and we definitely did not do that. We had very heavy topics for that day, really to kickstart some of the important work that Dr. Woodland talked to us about. So we also appreciate the way the staff was with us through that. We offered 2 sessions during that day for our teachers that really highlighted some of the work that we're going to be doing, really laid that foundation using, like we said, the information from the listening tours, the desire to really focus on this high quality tier 1 instruction. So this was the first session. Here were some of the learning outcomes for that. Right back to the next, that's okay. We wanted to make sure that our teachers understood what the core components were, generally referred to them as those buckets. So the curriculum, the planning, the instruction, the assessment. Those are really your core components of high quality tier 1 instruction that all students should have access to, whether they are pre-K kindergarten students or 8th grade social studies students. All students should have access to those things. We wanted to describe how this high-quality Tier 1 instruction is aligned with the Charlotte Danielson framework. It's important for our teachers to know this is not new. This is not new stuff that we're asking you to do. All of this is aligned to the evaluation system that we've started this year. So it's not new stuff. It's all embedded in there. We're just kind of bringing it out. And then the last part was kind of the most exciting part of this session, I think,
they were allowed to provide input and feedback, which then was presented to the district leadership team, or to district leadership to best develop the district-wide instructional framework. So we then brought all of this information back that they said what was most important in the area of curriculum. Is it curriculum materials? Is it understanding the standards, having common assessments? What are the most important pieces of assessments, common assessments, formative assessments? Which pieces do they find to be most important? It's all important. So we did stress that, making sure that they understood that all of these pieces in all of these buckets are important. But which maybe do they feel that as a district we're already doing really well at? Which do they feel that we really value for our students most importantly? So they took that survey. We then, at the district implementation team, looked at all of those results, and then the district implementation team is going to help us to form the Evergreen Park district leadership, instructional framework. The words are mixing up.
We got a lot of mouthfuls.
A lot of mouthfuls, sorry. So we want that instructional framework because we really believe in the equity across all of the buildings. We want what's good instruction at Southeast to be what's good instruction at Northwest, and we want all of our students to have access to that. So that was one of the sessions. The second session, we've heard a little bit about tonight, priority standards. Mr. Swilly kind of talked about the amount of standards are enormous, and there is definitely not enough time in any class and any grade level to get through all of those standards with depth. You can maybe get through if you just keep powering through, and you might get through them by the end of the year, but not with depth and not ensuring that students have some mastery in them, which is really what we want to do. So we discussed priority standards, made sure that teachers understood the value of determining those priority standards and how they actually do support student learning. It's recognized that in all classrooms, teachers by nature prioritize standards. You have things that you're teaching that as an individual teacher, you feel is very important. Like Mr. Swilly said, Egypt, you might prioritize that in your classroom, absolutely. Or you might have topics that you feel might need a couple of days of instruction, or this is gonna take us a week. You're prioritizing things all along. We wanna make sure that we're prioritizing things commonly across grade levels. So coming up with grade level wide priority standards we feel is really important. And one of the things that our teachers really spoke to us about were common assessments and ensuring that we have common assessments across all of our buildings, across grade levels, across content areas. And choosing priority standards is really the first step to that. We need to make sure that we have those standards that we've chosen, that we're developing, that we've ensured are vertically aligned without missing gaps. And then we're going to assess to those priority standards. So we also clarified the difference between priority and supporting standards. I kind of referred to them, and I did in this session. Kind of your priority standards are your heart standards. Those are the ones that you cannot live without, that you have to have that following year and you have to have moving forward. Your supporting standards are kind of like your arms and your legs. They're great to have and you desperately want them, and they're going to make things easier for you. You'll be a more efficient learner. All of those things if you have them, but your priority standards are the ones that you cannot survive without. They're the ones that we need to guarantee when a student leaves first grade. We're gonna guarantee the students have mastery of these standards because we know that they need them moving forward. So those were one more on there, thanks. So understanding that there is a difference between them. The supporting standards are still important. It's not that you're not going to teach them at all. It's just that we're going to, as a district, say third grade level, these are the common standards that we're gonna focus more on. So then we also use the REAL criteria, which stands for REAL is your readiness for the next level. So as teachers then begin to look at their standards and have conversations around them, this is the criteria that they're using to determine them. REAL means readiness for the next level. Do the students need this standard in order to be ready for the next level of instruction or the next concept that they're learning? E being endurance. Does this standard endure beyond a single test, beyond a single concept? Does it have endurance that they're going to need it moving forward? Assessment, is it something that's heavily assessed on the IAR, on the SAT? Is it something that they're going to need for those purposes? And leverage, does it have leverage across content areas? Or maybe it's a math standard that also is very important in science or something like that. So does it carry leverage across other areas? So our teachers then had time in this session to begin to meet at building levels. So they met, they began discussing their standards, going through using this criteria. So at a building level, they could begin to determine what they felt their priority standards are. From there, they're going to meet at district level teams. So all of our first grade teachers in the district will then begin to have those conversations. And then lastly, we'll meet vertically. So our first grade teachers and our second grade teachers and our third grade teachers to make sure that these priority standards align all the way up. So that was the work that we did in our second session. Like I said, big topics. And then our paraprofessionals and service providers, Dr. Newman was great in helping us to come up with things like we said. We want to make sure that the work that we're doing, the professional development, is tailored to the needs of the folks that are taking it. So we had a mental health first aid overview with Alexander Glumac, which was
She's amazing.
Yes.
She really is. We both took the class back in May. It was a full 8 hours of
Yeah.
coursework, but
It's an
I
intensive
love
training.
knowing that, and she's stupendous.
Yes.
So I'm so glad she was
And
here.
they had great feedback for that
Oh, I'm
too.
so
So
glad.
that was a valuable session for them. Dr. Newman gave an overview of para for our support services. So we've implemented the Danielson framework for our teachers. It looks very different for a speech and language path or a social worker. So really trying to make sure that they have an evaluation framework that's tailored to them. And then Liz Van Dorn was back with us and she did some behavior basics, an application of those things, and then de-escalation strategies for some of our paraprofessionals, which was also great. So really trying to make sure that we're meeting
Do
the needs
parents
of-
usually go on these professional days? That's awesome.
There are certain days that they come and there are certain days that they don't come.
Gotcha.
But this
That's
happened to be a day that they come.
That's these are great.
Mental health and de-escalation strategies are.
Yes.
And the paraprofessionals really asked for a lot of these topics too.
The only thing that's missing is diversity and inclusion, culturally responsive teaching.
Yes.
I feel like that should be included in all aspects of our institute days because we have to, while tier one, that is the bubble,
Mhm.
we have to continue to push that underperforming body of students
Absolutely.
because that's gonna help mitigate a lot of the behaviors.
And that's gonna need to, I think, also filter out when we do our tier one best practices and also when we do our priority standards work. I mean, I think that needs to be embedded through all of it, as you said.
So I happened to be in the group that was the teacher group that was focusing on instruction. And one of the things that the teachers stated is that they wanted to value the diversity of our students. So that will be included in that bucket, and then we can provide training around that particular topic. But what did we hear from teachers? We heard from teachers that we need to start with them first. So the fact that they're stating that, now we can act upon it. I think that's one of the critical pieces. It's this healthy balance of saying what are teachers describing that we need? They're describing that now. Now we can act upon that and make sure they're provided that support along the way.
Yes, because our teachers need the resources.
Mhm.
They are so stretched thin right now,
Yeah.
so
Absolutely.
any additional supports is absolutely critical for them. But diversity and inclusion, culturally responsive teaching is not separate. It
No.
needs to be incorporated in everything we do
Absolutely.
because our body of students are multicultural.
It's true. Absolutely.
Right?
Thank you so much.
Dr. Newman?
All right, mine isn't as juicy, it's about the vaccine clinic. So we've developed a really great partnership with, I had to write this one down, the Illinois Emergency Management Agency. But my contact, his name is Corey, and he's been very excited that we have accepted the challenge of hosting vaccine clinics because they're trying to recruit schools across Illinois to do this work
Wow.
for them. Yeah, and so we held it at Central Middle School. The first two, if you remember,
students at that time were just allowed to take the vaccine, right?
At 12 years old, that
Yeah.
was only at 12, right?
Right. We didn't have a big turnout for the first two. We had 20, and I was really disappointed. And the representatives were like, well, this is really good compared to the other schools that we've been at. I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh.
But the December one, and now this was strategic. We planned it right before the holiday break and right when we got back. Do you know we had over 109 people?
Wow, that's
Yes.
awesome,
Yeah.
excellent.
And I can tell you the December 11th one, I was very impressed with seeing Dr. Whitman's costume.
Day of the Grinch
The
breakfast.
Grinch
Yeah, the
Christmas,
Grinch
yeah.
breakfast. That was an added bonus.
Yes, absolutely.
That was definitely an added bonus, but I think that the challenge with hosting them is, some people are coming to get their booster or their first shot on the second one.
Yeah.
So then they're immediately asking, when's your next one? When's your next one, you know, and
Gotcha.
so, I think that strategically will make sense because we typically see a spike around the breaks to try to plan it right before the break so that students can get their first one and then their second one,
Nice.
you know, we're good to go for spring break, you know, so we can look at that, right?
That's awesome.
Okay,
Well, there's a young John Klimzak who got his booster at the Monday
Yeah, I
to
saw the
January.
Parkers there.
Yes, so he was, that was perfectly timed, you know, he's out of our schools now, he's a senior in high school, but it was available and
Yeah.
he was super boosted before he went back to school, which is really great, and so thank you so much.
So can you give them some constructive criticism? There are, there's the portal to register and then get an appointment, and then there's walk-ins. So I feel like if you go into the portal and you register and you have an appointment, there should be a line to accept those people. Because if you've done that and now you're still standing in the back of the line with all the other people, then what was the point of
Oh, I
doing that
agree, yeah.
footwork ahead of time? So just ask them about that, like, if these people are doing this, then we should take them as opposed to having them stand behind the people who are trying to register.
Almost have like a walk-in and a check-in.
Absolutely, because I was standing in line for 20 minutes and I had already done
Made your
everything.
appointment,
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have any upcoming dates?
No, not yet, but I was thinking ahead of time and like, when is the next peak? And spring break is going to be a big one. So having it probably in March, 'cause our spring break is in April, right?
It is.
It's in April,
Yeah.
right after
Yeah, so
Easter.
having another vaccine clinic.
Nice.
So should we have something like leading up to the spring, like somewhere in
Yeah.
February?
Yeah,
We're gonna
that's
have
what
one
she said.
there, and then March.
Nice.
Yeah, you have to give yourself a couple of weeks to plan it out with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we're beyond the point where we have to do another site visit. But there's some coordination up front that you have to do.
Okay.
And then,
I feel like it was very well organized though. I love that they had seating for everybody, they had snacks. The support stuff, were they all like nurses or
so this is the thing, they have a team. And they draw from people from all over the United States.
Yes.
So I met people from California and from Florida, Atlanta, and they fly in. So they haven't necessarily worked together before.
I see, okay. But they did a great job with like calming down the kids that
Right,
were upset.
right.
Like they were coming over, doing everything they could to kind of keep everybody calm and keep everybody happy. So,
Yeah,
so I thought that it was ran well. That's just one,
I
Limit of
completely agree.
feedback that
We
could
had a
be done
long
differently.
line.
yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah, that's
Right,
good.
right.
That's good.
Good because people are coming.
Yes,
Unfortunate that the people who had appointments had to wait.
Yes, yes,
right.
yeah.
So great job.
I will
Keep it
give
up.
them that feedback.
Excellent.
Thank you.
That's awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
On to the money guy.
Money.
This month, I decided to change up the slides a little
Our
bit.
slides, I see that.
Nice.
The glasses on.
Yeah.
Well, revenues and expenditures, I'm still trying to figure out how to get it to make sense in graph form, but the fund balance slide I like a lot better, it's a lot easier to read. So if you look here, at the revenue, so what it does is compares where we are at right now to where we were at a year ago at this month. You'll notice that there is roughly $500,000 added in revenue to the ed fund. Most of that is from evidence-based funding money. We also, in this past month, received our $50,000 check for the school maintenance project grant, which is
Remember
good.
that?
Yes,
So it's nice, so
Yeah.
we officially start that, now we get the
Nice.
check and everything like that.
Get when money just shows up, it's awesome.
And we had earmarked that for some of the floor updates at Northeast.
Northeast, yeah.
I know, right?
And then outside of that, there really wasn't too much over the past month that happened with revenues. It was mainly just in the ed fund. Now expenditures, there's roughly $2 million added in the ed fund. Outside of that, it's roughly consistent. This is salaries and benefits, and then also it's the second and final aero payment that we had to make, so we're officially done with that.
ouch.
We currently are at 45% of our budget, which is really good just because we are at a little over 50% of the school year, so hopefully that means we could be a little bit under budget this year, which would be great. And fund balance this year is roughly $300,000 higher at this month than it was last year.
Oh, that's great. Comparison, that helps.
Here's a new fund balance
Ooh.
slide. So you'll see here, ed fund's pretty healthy. Transportation and tort fund, you might notice, is negative, but that's due to the difference between accrual and cash basis. I'll explain that later to you guys, but it's not, we'll just do a transfer, but
And that ed fund is also because of the money that received, right? The monies that we got towards,
The bond.
yes.
Yep.
yes.
Couldn't think of the word, sorry.
I thought I was gonna read your mind.
It's
I read
like
your mind.
just blanking, I'm picturing the woman standing here, yeah.
Tammy.
That woman that gave us money.
Directly, yeah.
Does anybody have questions about any of this? And then we have a P-tab from Meyer Store, and so they requested over the years of 2017, 2018, and 2019. They requested $398,000 to come back from us. And our lawyer recommended that we settle at $121,726, which is roughly 30.58% of what Meyer wants. So I believe this is a good amount because, if we were to deny it, then, it would keep going and then it might go into legal fees and then those costs add up. So I think this is probably the best option for us.
How far back are they able to go?
I'm not really,
2017?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I know that right now they're working on 2020 and 2021.
Oh, they're years behind on some of these. Mm-hmm.
It just takes time to settle in
Yeah.
terms of what the district would then have to contribute in the event you have to settle for an agreement, which is where we're currently at.
Cause I think we have to agree along with Evergreen 231, right, in order to, we have to agree and so does the high school governing body that we will.
Right.
That's
So
correct.
we communicate with the high school and then the lawyer. We all communicate together and decide if we think that it's good to bring in front of the board or not.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
We have, for an update for the property tax grant, I thought that they were going to approve by this time. They just finalized everything and are gonna send out approval starting at the beginning of February. And then roughly around the time of the board meeting next month, they'll have a final spreadsheet of everybody that got the money, so I'll have a better update for you.
Do you remember what we budgeted for our PTAB this year? I know in the past, we have paid up to 800,000, but it went down significantly. Do you remember what we?
We'll get back to
I
you
would
on
have to
that.
get back to you.
Okay, yeah, 300 sounds about right, but I don't know.
I know I was the first one to say we budget for PTAB.
Yeah.
Man, that hurts.
I just remember we had a
I know.
couple huge years, but then they said, oh, we promise they'll go down, and they have.
They have, no, they
This
absolutely
just
have.
seems like a big amount.
It does.
They're one of our
I'd rather
biggest
pay.
Right.
coolers, so.
I'd rather pay only 30% of it.
Yeah.
though.
Right, I
Like,
agree,
I can
yes.
absolutely get around that, or get on board with that one, but it does hurt.
Yeah,
you
those
know?
emails aren't
I
fun
know,
to get.
I know.
We have 3 FOIAs as well,
Mhm.
2 from Smart Procure, and both of those are have been completed, and then one from ABC7 Chicago, which also has been completed.
And that was just, I was curious about that because I'm curious what they're curious about.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, okay, I'm just always interested that they must be looking for information, so the, cost of remote learning and technology and remote
Equipment,
learning is
yeah,
kind of what they were getting
I
at.
think like maybe what it, for like a graph that they
Sure,
make for all the
sure.
schools or
Um,
something like that.
But I think I asked, Dr. Woodland that when she mentioned it last week, I was like, oh, I wonder what they care about
Right.
and what's interesting to them, and so, yeah, it's like, okay, that makes sense.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to reiterate, we will not vote on the property tax grant tonight. We're still waiting to hear back.
We are on then to, item 6, which is public comments. Do we have any green sheets? Okay. For those, who are tuning in from home, so just a reminder, specific to logistics for public comment portion of every meeting. And that is as posted on our agenda publicly for every meeting. All of our stakeholders, commenters, board, public, we adhere very closely to the 3-minute limit for comments for everyone. We will set a timer and expect everyone to respect their 3 minutes. In addition, we don't respond to public comments at board meetings, but we absolutely hear them. And we respect and we listen to and we take into account all of the community member concerns. So just felt to make that PSA, thank you very much. And we will close public comments. On to our action items, item number 7. No board reports this month.
I know.
Thank goodness, because my board has been beleaguered.
Poor you.
We had some COVID people over the last month, and I love you all so much. So I'm really grateful that we don't have board reports, and meetings and things to report. I know that a lot are revving back up again. District review team reminder just went out a couple days ago, so we'll have something to report.
Oh, and the policy packet.
Oh, it's huge, like
A lot of light reading there.
it's seriously,
Listen to
I'm
Claudia, a lot of
sorry.
light reading
and
there.
I was like, wait, where's the rest of it? Like, there's no reports? How'd we do? Right, but it was because of breaks, so thank you. Okay, so back to the consent agenda. Consent agenda A, 1 is to approve the monthly transaction reports for December 2021. 2 is to approve the fund balance reports for December of 2021. 3 is to approve expenditure report and projected payroll report for January of 2022. 4 is to approve board minutes from the regular meeting of December 15th, 2021. 5 is to approve the closed session minutes for the regular meeting of December 15th, 2021. 6 is to approve destruction of closed session tapes from September of 2017. 7 is to approve the personnel recommendations. We have 5 additions, which is great news. We have 1 extended leave of absence without pay and 1 FMLA. Are any of our people, our additions, present this evening?
I don't think so.
Okay, and I forgot to say, can I please have a motion to accept, but I was just curious. So if I could please have a motion to accept consent agenda item A.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Rachel, and a second, please.
I'll second.
Thanks, Judy. And a roll call, please.
Rachel Merrickwin,
Yes.
Judy Rayson,
Yes.
Michael Allmiller.
Yay.
Denise Jones,
Yes.
Kim Leonard, yes. Claudia Parker,
Yes.
Colleen Clemzak.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Consent agenda, item B is to approve the job description for the substitute nurse. Just a reminder, this isn't a new position, it's just providing the job description for a position that already exists. So if I could have somebody please make a first.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Michael. And a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Rachel. And a roll call, please.
Michael Allmiller.
Yay.
Rachel Merrickwin,
Yes.
Denise Jones,
Yes.
Claudia Parker,
Of course.
Kim Leonard, yes. Judy Rayson,
Yes.
and Colleen Clemzak.
Yes. Motion passed.
Motion passed.
Item C is to approve the job description for the summer school coordinator. Same story. We have that position existing already, there just wasn't a job description for it. So if I could have someone please make the first motion to approve?
Is it the summer school coordinator or summer school principals?
I said summer school coordinator.
I know, but this says summer school principal, I'm just wondering.
Oh.
What is it really called?
Well
It
advised.
should be summer school principal
On
Not
the
coordinator.
agenda or
Yeah.
on the job description?
on the agenda,
Okay,
Job description, it says principal.
yeah.
excellent.
Alright,
Mrs. Leonard is making the appropriate changes.
alright, so,
Thank you. To rephrase, if I could please have a first motion to approve the job description for the summer school principal.
There you go.
Excellent, thank you.
and I'll second.
Did you say a
I
first?
like that motion.
Okay, she said there you go, but we'll take that as a first, so
Yep, I'm
Claudia
taking
the
it for her first, Claudia.
Kim Leonard for
Claudia
the
Parker,
Yeah.
Kim Leonard, yes. Judy Rayson,
Yes.
Rachel Merrickwin.
Yes.
Michael Miller.
Yay.
Denise Jones. And Colleen Clemzak.
Yes.
Yes, motion passed.
Great, thank you. And then finally, D, thank you, Mr. Grossi, to approve the settlement agreement with Meyer Stores LP for the 2017 to 19 PTAB injection. I know it hurts, but if I could have a first motion, please, to approve?
I'll make that motion.
I know, Denise. All right, Denise made the first and a second, please.
I'll make the second.
Thanks, Kim. And a roll
And
call.
Denise Jones.
Yes.
Kim Leonard, yes. Judy Rayson.
Yes.
Claudia Parker.
Yes.
Rachel Merrickwin.
Yes.
Michael Miller.
I understand the arguments in favor of settling. I'd like to see the district challenge some of them at some point. I know we budget for it. I just feel like laying down like that, of course, they're gonna keep coming to us for more PTABs.
Okay,
Nay.
fair enough.
And Colleen Clemzak.
I'll say yes, please.
Alright, motion has passed with one no.
But noted.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Alright.
So that ends our very informative meeting for this evening. We will be recessing to closed session to discuss the appointment, employment compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. Do I have a first? And a second?
I'll second.
Great, and a roll call?
Judy Rayson.
Yes.
Rachel Merrickwin.
Yes.
Kim Leonard, yes. Michael Miller.
Yay.
Denise Jones.
Yes.
Claudia Parker.
Yes.
And Colleen Clemzak.
Yes.
Motion is passed.
Great. So we're gonna recess and we actually will not be taking any action after we return from closed session this evening, so if
Thanks
you
for
wanna
hanging out with us.
yeah, Matt just gave me the this, yeah. So thank you for being here.